King Charles had already announced that he was stripping his brother of his titles, but now it is official.
A British prince just lost everything. His title, his home, his honours, gone in a single day. For the first time in almost 100 years, a senior member of the British royal family has been publicly cast out. No longer Prince Andrew, just Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, a commoner. King Charles just did what many thought was impossible. He banished his own brother. And the reason? A scandal so explosive it finally broke the royal family's silence. Here's how the scandal that ended a prince's life of privilege truly began. Thursday evening, October 30th, 2025. Buckingham Palace released a statement that shocked the world. King Charles III had stripped his younger brother of his prince title. Andrew would no longer be His Royal Highness. He would be kicked out of the 30-room royal lodge where he had lived for over 20 years. The palace statement was clear and cold. This was the king's decision. Andrew had no choice. These actions were necessary, even though Andrew continues to deny the allegations. Then came something unusual. The palace added that the king and queen's thoughts remain with victims and survivors of all forms of abuse. This was public. This was final. This was punishment. Andrew will now move to a small property on the King's Sandringham estate, far from London, far from the spotlight, exiled to the countryside. The ultimate humiliation for a man who loved royal life. To understand why this happened, we need to go back to Jeffrey Epstein, the convicted sex offender who died in prison in 2019. Andrew's friendship with Epstein has haunted the royal family for years. But in October 2025, things got worse. New emails came out showing Andrew had stayed in contact with Epstein much longer than he admitted. These were not just casual emails. They showed continued contact after Epstein's 2008 conviction, after everyone knew what kind of person Epstein was. Then came the final blow. A posthumous memoir written by Virginia Giuffre, the woman who had accused Andrew of sexual abuse. Giuffre had tragically died by suicide in April 2025 at just 41 years old. But before she died, she wrote everything down. The book was called Nobody's Girl. It hit bookstores in October 2025. In detailed, painful prose, Giuffre described 3 alleged sexual encounters with Andrew when she was 17 years old. She wrote that Andrew acted like having sex with her was his birthright, like he was entitled to her body because of who he was. The book sent shockwaves through Britain. People were furious. How could the royal family continue to protect Andrew? How could he still be called a prince while living in a palace? The pressure on King Charles was enormous. Regular people, politicians, news outlets, anti-monarchy groups, everyone demanded Andrew had to go. Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch said the king clearly felt this was the right decision, but it must have been difficult to act against his own brother. The Liberal Democrats leader said Andrew had disgraced his office and embarrassed the country. Even Parliament members were calling for Andrew to appear before a committee, to answer questions, to be held accountable. The calls grew louder every day. For weeks, royal insiders said something big was coming. Behind palace walls, King Charles was consulting with legal experts and constitutional advisors. This was uncharted territory. What could a king do to his own brother? Royal sources told CNN that the king was trying to act swiftly, but needed time. Time to understand every legal implication. Time to ensure this action would be final. What King Charles did was almost unprecedented. Royal historian Kate Williams called it huge. Nothing like this had happened in the modern era. You have to go back to 1936 to find something comparable. The abdication crisis when King Edward VIII gave up the throne. But this is different. Andrew did not choose to leave. He was pushed out by his own brother. The last time someone was stripped of the prince title was 1919. Over 100 years ago, Prince Ernest Augustus lost his title for siding with Germany during World War I. But Andrew's case is different. He is being censured for serious errors of judgment, for his association with a sex offender, for allegations of sexual abuse. This feels permanent. Prince Andrew was born into privilege, third child of Queen Elizabeth II, a prince since birth. For 65 years, he enjoyed wealth and status most people can only dream of. He served in the Royal Navy. was a helicopter pilot during the Falklands War in 1982. People respected him, called him a war hero. He married Sarah Ferguson in 1986, had 2 daughters, Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie. But somewhere along the way, Andrew made terrible choices. He became friends with Jeffrey Epstein, a wealthy financier who threw parties with powerful people, who had private jets and islands. The friendship continued even after Epstein was convicted in 2008 for soliciting prostitution from a minor. Photos emerged of Andrew with Epstein. The palace tried to explain it away. Nobody believed it. Then came Virginia Giuffre's allegations. She said she was trafficked by Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, forced to have sex with powerful men, including Prince Andrew, 3 times, in London, in New York, on Epstein's private island. Andrew denied everything, said he could not have been at the London location because he was at a Pizza Express in Woking with his daughter, said he did not remember meeting Giuffre, said a photo of them together might be fake. In November 2019, Andrew agreed to a BBC interview. He thought he could clear his name. It was a disaster. Perhaps the worst royal interview in history. Andrew showed no empathy for Epstein's victims. He made strange claims, said he could not sweat because of a medical condition from the Falklands War. This was his explanation for Giuffre's claim that he was sweating when they danced. People watching were stunned. He seemed entitled, unbothered, like the rules did not apply to him. Within days, Andrew stepped back from royal duties. He said it was temporary. But temporary turned into forever. For the next few years, Andrew stayed mostly out of sight. He appeared at his mother's funeral in 2022, his brother's coronation in 2023, but he was no longer a working royal. Still, he kept his titles, kept his mansion. Critics said it was not enough, that Andrew was being protected. In 2021, Virginia Giuffre filed a civil lawsuit against Andrew in New York for sexual abuse. The case made worldwide headlines. Andrew's lawyers tried everything to get it dismissed. Nothing worked. The case was moving forward. Andrew would have to give testimony under oath. Then, in February 2022, Andrew settled. He paid millions of dollars to Giuffre. Reports said around £12 million. He did not admit wrongdoing, but he acknowledged Giuffre had suffered as a victim of sex trafficking. Many saw the settlement as an admission of guilt. Why pay millions if you did nothing wrong? Andrew's reputation was in tatters, but still, he remained a prince. Virginia Giuffre's death in April 2025 was tragic. She had been through so much: the abuse, the trafficking, the years of fighting for justice, the public scrutiny, people questioning her story, calling her a liar. It all took a terrible toll. But she left behind her memoir, Nobody's Girl. The title itself was powerful. She was not nobody's girl, not property, not a thing to be used by powerful men. The book came out in October 2025. It was detailed, specific, painful to read. Giuffre described the 3 times she says she had sex with Andrew. She was 17, being trafficked. She had no choice. Controlled by Epstein and Maxwell. Giuffre wrote about Andrew's behavior, how he treated her like an object, how he seemed to think it was his right to use her. She described feeling powerless, disgusted, wanting to disappear. After the memoir was published, Giuffre's brother Sky Roberts spoke out. He said his sister was an ordinary American girl who brought down a British prince with her truth and extraordinary courage. He declared victory for his sister. The memoir was the final straw. King Charles knew he had to act. Every day he did nothing, the monarchy's reputation suffered. 2 weeks before the big announcement, Andrew gave up the Duke of York title. He said he was putting duty to family and country first. But it was not enough. The scandal kept growing. Anti-monarchy groups said this proved the royals thought they were above the law. Graham Smith from the Republic campaign said losing titles was not an answer to serious accusations. That Andrew needed real justice. Behind the scenes, King Charles was meeting with Prince William and legal experts. They all agreed something dramatic had to be done immediately. On October 30th, 2025, King Charles made history. He formally removed his brother's princely status. Andrew was no longer Prince Andrew. He would be known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, a commoner. Gone were all his titles: Duke of York, Earl of Inverness, Baron Killyleagh, all stripped away. Gone too were his honours. He lost his membership in the Order of the Garter, one of the highest orders of chivalry in Britain. He lost his status as a Knight Grand Cross of the Royal Victorian Order. He would no longer be called His Royal Highness. People would not bow to him. He would have no official role, no place at state ceremonies. And he had to leave Royal Lodge, the 30-room mansion in Windsor, the sprawling property with beautiful grounds, the home he had lived in for over 20 years, where he raised his daughters. He had to pack up and move to a small private house on the Sandringham estate in Norfolk. From a mansion with 30 rooms to a cottage, from the centre of royal life to the remote countryside, from privilege to exile. His ex-wife Sarah Ferguson, who had been living with him at Royal Lodge for 2 decades, would have to leave too. Find her own accommodation. The fairy tale was completely over. Their daughters, Beatrice and Eugenie, would keep their princess titles, but only because of a 1917 directive from King George V about grandchildren of the sovereign. Not a special favour, just following existing rules. Politicians praised the king's decision. They said it was difficult but necessary. That family loyalty cannot come before duty and justice. Kemi Badenoch acknowledged how hard this must have been for Charles to act against his own brother, but she said the king clearly felt this was the right decision. But critics were not satisfied. They said this was just damage control, that Charles and William were protecting themselves, protecting the institution, putting distance between the monarchy and Andrew to save their own positions. Republic's Graham Smith said Andrew needed real justice, not just symbolic punishment, that this proved royals think they are above the law, that true accountability means legal consequences. Royal historians noted the significance. This was unprecedented in modern times. Not since Edward VIII in 1936 had a senior royal been so publicly cast aside. And that was different. Edward chose to abdicate. Andrew was forced out. Andrew will not move immediately. Royal sources say he will stay at Royal Lodge through Christmas. Moving in the new year might avoid awkwardness since the royal family traditionally gathers at Sandringham for the holidays. Though Andrew has already been excluded from those celebrations, Andrew will receive financial support from his brother, private money from Charles's personal funds, not public funds. He will have a place to live on the Sandringham estate, but it will be small, private, away from public view. He remains 8th in line to the throne, but it is meaningless now. He will never perform royal duties again, never represent the monarchy, never appear on the Buckingham Palace balcony. He is effectively erased from public royal life. For the victims of Epstein, for Virginia Giuffre and her family, this is some measure of justice. Not complete justice, not legal accountability, but acknowledgement. The royal family finally admitted Andrew's actions were serious enough to warrant the ultimate punishment within their power: exile from the family. The fall of Prince Andrew is complete. From royal prince to commoner. From a 30-room mansion to a small cottage. From public duties to private obscurity. His association with Jeffrey Epstein cost him everything he valued. King Charles faced an impossible choice: stand by his brother or stand by the monarchy, stand with family or stand with victims. He chose the monarchy. He chose the victims. He chose accountability over loyalty. He made it clear that no one, not even a prince born to a queen, is above consequences. Whether this is enough to repair the royal family's damaged reputation remains to be seen. Whether Andrew will ever face legal consequences remains unknown. Whether the public will forgive the years of protection remains uncertain. But one thing is certain: the man once known as Prince Andrew will never return to royal life. His banishment is permanent. His legacy is ruined. His name is now synonymous with scandal and shame. This is what happens when scandal meets the spotlight, when victims refuse to be silenced, when truth demands recognition, when justice, even imperfect justice, finally arrives. A prince fell, and he fell hard. The higher you climb, the further you fall, and Andrew fell from the very top all the way to the bottom.